Okay, let's unpack this. The Good Friday Agreement. I mean, for decades, Northern Ireland was just defined by violence. This agreement really changed everything.
It absolutely did.
Mm.
And we're not just looking at a peace treaty here. We're really diving into a blueprint that forced enemies, I mean, people who truly hated each other, to govern together.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of the deal, let's set the scene a bit. Where are we talking about?
We're talking about Northern Ireland. It's part of the United Kingdom, but it's on the island of Ireland.
Right, so it shares a land border with the Republic of Ireland.
Exactly. And it's not a huge place. About 1.9 million people live there, mostly around the capital, Belfast. It's beautiful, too. You've got Lough Neagh, the Giant's Causeway.
But the geography is kind of secondary to the real story here, which is the deep division in the population.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
You basically have two main groups. On one side, you have people who call themselves Unionists. They're mainly Protestant, and they want Northern Ireland to stay part of the UK.
And on the other side.
You have nationalists, sometimes called Republicans. They're mainly Catholic, and they want Northern Ireland to leave the UK and unite with the Republic of Ireland.
And this disagreement, it's what led to the period known as the Troubles.
Yeah. It really exploded in the late 1960s. It started with civil rights protests, but quickly spiraled into this really awful period of violence.
And we're not just talking about protests.
No, not at all. You had riots, bombings, assassinations. Armed groups on both sides were fighting. Thousands of people were killed. The British Army was on the streets. For almost 30 years, peace just seemed impossible.
So if it was that bad for so long, what changed? How did they even begin to talk?
I think by the 1990s, there was this grim acceptance that nobody could win through violence.
A stalemate.
The total stalemate. The cost was just too high. So peace, it became the only real option left.
And the first step was what?
Secret talks. Really risky stuff. But political leaders started reaching out. And then the British and Irish governments got heavily involved, working together to push things forward.
But how do you build trust with people you've been fighting for decades? That seems like the hardest part.
It was. That's why they brought in international help. Former U.S. Senator George Mitchell, he chaired the main negotiations. He set strict rules and just kept forcing them to talk, even when they wanted to walk away.
And all that talking eventually led to the Good Friday Agreement.
It did. It was signed in Belfast on April 10th, 1998. But you have to understand, it wasn't just a ceasefire.
No, it was a whole new plan for running the country.
A whole new plan based on fairness and respect for everyone, no matter which side they were on. And a huge part of it was every single party promising to only use peaceful democratic methods from then on.
So no more violence to achieve political goals.
Exactly. That was the baseline.
Okay, so let's get into the structure of it. The key phrase you always hear is power sharing. What does that actually mean in practice?
It's a system designed to make sure one community can never dominate the other. It's literally built into the government's DNA.
And that government meets at a place called Stormont.
Right, the Northern Ireland Assembly. And here's the first example of power sharing. The leaders. You don't have one prime minister.
You have two.
Two. A first minister and a deputy first minister. And they are total equals. One has to be a unionist and one has to be a nationalist.
And what's the catch?
The catch is, if one of them resigns, the other one automatically loses their job too.
So they're locked together, they have to cooperate, or the whole government falls.
They sink or swim together. It forces them to work it out.
Okay, so that's the leadership. What about making laws? How does that work?
Well, for any really big decision, you need something called cross-community consent.
Meaning?
Meaning, you don't just need a majority of votes in the assembly. You need a majority of unionist members and a majority of nationalist members to agree.
So one side can't just push through a law that the other side hates.
Exactly. It gives both sides a veto on the big stuff. It forces compromise. If they can't agree, nothing happens. It's a brilliant, if sometimes frustrating, design.
Now, the agreement wasn't just about how Northern Ireland governed itself. It also completely changed its relationship with its neighbor, the Republic of Ireland.
Absolutely. They created new institutions, like a North-South Ministerial Council, where leaders from Belfast and Dublin would meet to work together on practical things.
Like what?
Oh, things like tourism, environmental protection, transport, stuff that affects the whole island. It just normalized cooperation across the border.
And the border itself was a huge deal.
A massive deal. The agreement did two things. First, it said people in Northern Ireland could choose to be British, Irish, or both. Your identity was your choice.
And second?
The Republic of Ireland changed its constitution. It dropped its official territorial claim to Northern Ireland. This is a huge symbolic step. And the result, is the open border we see today. No checkpoints, no soldiers, just drive right through.
The agreement also put a huge focus on protecting people's rights, which was a major issue during the Troubles.
A very big focus. They set up a new Human Rights Commission to make sure everyone was treated fairly and without discrimination. It was all about building trust back into this system.
Okay, let's talk about the hardest parts. The weapons. You can't have peace while armed groups are still around.
Right. The process was called decommissioning. And it was so difficult. The paramilitary groups had to agree to give up all their guns and explosives, and it had to be verified by international inspectors.
And that didn't happen overnight.
It took years.
Huh.
And every delay caused a new political crisis. But it was non-negotiable. The weapons had to go.
And then there's the issue of prisoners. This must have been incredibly painful for victims of violence.
It was one of the most controversial parts of the deal. Prisoners who were in jail for conflict-related crimes were released early.
Why?
It was a compromise,
Yeah.
a really bitter one for many. But it was seen as necessary to get the political parties linked to those armed groups to fully commit to peace.
And what about the police? The old police force was seen as biased by many nationalists.
Yes, the RUC. It was completely disbanded. It was replaced by a brand new service, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, or PSNI.
And the goal was to make it more representative.
Exactly. They launched a huge recruitment drive to get more Catholics to join, to make it a police service for the whole community, not just one side. At the same time, all the army watchtowers and bases started coming down. The look of the place began to change.
So after all this intense negotiation and compromise, the deal was done. But it still needed the people's approval.
Yep. The final step was a referendum, a public vote, held on the same day in both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
And the results.
A landslide for peace. In Northern Ireland, 71% voted yes, and in the Republic, it was over 94%. That gave the agreement this huge, undeniable democratic mandate.
So if you look at Northern Ireland today, it's a completely different place. It's much more peaceful, vibrant.
Oh, completely. You have tourism booming, film studios. Young people are growing up without that constant fear and military presence.
But it's not perfect. There are still problems.
No, it's not perfect. There are still some communities separated by these huge walls called peace lines. And the power-sharing government itself is very fragile. It's actually collapsed several times when the parties just refuse to work together.
So the system works, but it needs the politicians to actually want it to work.
Exactly. The Good Friday Agreement is the foundation. It stops the violence. But building a truly shared society on top of that foundation, well, that's the ongoing work.
The focus now seems to be on things like integrated schools, trying to bring kids from both communities together from a young age.
That's right. It's the next logical step. The agreement is a masterclass in how you can design a system that forces dialogue over violence. It proves it's possible for enemies to find a way to build a future together, even if it's difficult.
And I suppose the big takeaway is that signing the deal was just the beginning. The real work is making those compromises stick day after day. It really makes you think about what it would take to solve other conflicts around the world. See you next time.